Hello, my little yarnivores and spiderettes. Fiber Spider back again with another tutorial just for you. And today I'm going to show you a cute little scarf that I call the V scarf. I've seen variations of it called the boomerang scarf, but a while back it was the boomerang shawl. And I'm like, oh, it looks like a boomerang, but I think it almost looks more like a V. You know, it's very sharp and pointed, and I rather like it. And so this actually is a variation of a knitted pattern that I saw, and I tweaked it a little bit so that it can be crocheted, because I know that not all of you are knitters out there. I'm a hybrid, so I like to do both. Now, the fun thing about this scarf is the ends, the very slow tapering of the ends. And this is really not a shawl, maybe a shawlette, but this is not a conventional shawl because the entire width of the piece, it's not very wide. Now, keep in mind that if you want it really wide, it's going to be super duper long. It's going to be very, very long because it starts at one point and then it gets wider and wider and wider. And then when you reach the middle, that's when you start your decrease and you get skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. And it's so tapered. It's so very, very, very tapered that if you had a really wide piece, you could wrap this thing around yourself and somebody else and, get all tangled. Don't want that. So at any rate, for this project, I used Karen Cakes. I don't recall the colorway. I apologize. But I thought that because it was working from one point to the other, that it would be interesting. This actually would look even better with a slow gradient color change, if you have one available. I think Boutique, I think it's Red Heart Boutique, or Unforgettable has some really nice slow color changes. That would look really nice. And so for this piece, I used a size, where's my hook? Where is my hook? Because I used a size, here's my hook. I used a size I 5.5 millimeter hook for this worsted weight yarn. Now for the demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a slightly bigger hook, a size J, which is a 6 millimeter hook. And the yarn that I'm going to be using is Terracotta, and this is Vanna's Choice yarn. It's what I had, in my stash. And so I'm going to use this for this demo, and I'm going to use a slightly bigger hook so that it'll be easier to see what I'm doing with the stitches with the increasing and the decreasing. And believe it or not, there is increasing and decreasing going on simultaneously, even though the piece gets wider. And the reason why you do that is to create this interesting shape. So without further ado, let's get started. Alrighty, so I've got my size J 6 millimeter hook and my worsted weight yarn. You can use whatever hook size works for you with whatever yarn it is that you're using, of course. And so we're going to start with our slip knot. Now we need 2 double crochets to begin with. So to start, we chain 1, and we're going to be working into that chain. Now for our first double, we need a chaining up of 3. So that's our first double, and then we need another double into that first chain. So technically speaking, chain 4, and then double crochet 1 double crochet into that first chain. And so we have 2 double crochets, technically speaking. All right. And so that is technically row 1, if you will. Now it's a 2-row repeat. It's really, really simple for the increasing. And then for the decreasing, it is also a 2-row repeat, but it's the exact opposite. And it'll make more sense as we go along. Don't worry, I'm gonna do plenty of repeats for you. Don't worry about that. And so I'm not gonna do the stitch counters, the row counters for you. And so that is your base. Okay, let's keep on going. Alrighty, so moving right along, the first double crochet that we're going to do, technically speaking, yes, you could do a chaining up of 3 and then turn your work, but I feel that it makes a gap when you're going into the next stitch. So to avoid that gap, and I've done this in some of my tutorials before, instead of doing a chaining up of 3 initially, turn your work and into that first stitch do a single crochet and a chaining up of 1. And it makes a more solid double crochet as opposed to a chaining up of 3. I like it better personally. Then into the next double crochet, we need 2 double crochets. And it can be a little bit difficult because we have to work into this chain right there. And it takes a little bit of finessing, but if you're persistent, you can get it. See, like that, right there. And so we need 2 double crochets into that chain, that double crochet, if you will. And there we go. And that is the second row. Now, what you want to keep in mind as you go on is that for the first half of your scarf is the side where you're doing your increases and the side where you're doing your decreases. Very, very important to remember. So, I mean, also, if you can look closely, you can see that both of these stitches are going and sprouting out of this one stitch. So this right here, this is our increase side, and this right here is going to be our decrease side. And the reason why we're going to be doing increases and decreases is so that we're going to have a very slow, gradual, tapered end. All right, so we're going to keep on going, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so moving right along, we're going to do another one of our double crochets to begin with, which is into that first stitch a single crochet, chain 1, and because this is, as we said, this is going to be the increase side, we need another double crochet into that same stitch. So on the increase side, it's increases whether you're starting or ending that row. On that side, it's always an increase, okay? Every row. And because on the last row that we did, there was no decrease, on this row, there will be a decrease. Again, this will make more sense as we go on. Trust me. So we did our increase. Now for these 2 double crochets here and here, we need to do a decrease. Now it seems a little silly because we literally just started, but it creates a really nice tip, I think. So it's to do that decrease, you start a double but don't finish it, and then going into the next stitch to do a double, pull through 2, and then pull through all 3 for your decrease. So you went from 2 to 3, back down to 1 and 2 and sort of 3. You know, it looks like you really didn't make any progress, but it'll make more sense as we go on. Trust me. Alrighty, so moving right along, we need to do another one of our double crochets in the beginning. So that's into that first stitch, a single crochet and a chain. And so now we have 2 double crochets left over. So into this next one, just a regular double crochet, and then into the end one, because this is the increase side. I can't stress that enough. So because this is the increase side, into this last double crochet, we need to do our increase. Now, because we're working into the modified double crochets, it really does help if you make your chains after the single crochet just a little bit loose. It really does help. So now we have the end of this row. I'm going to do another one. So always keep in mind which side is your increase side. Now, if you want to put like a little safety pin or a piece of yarn on that side, whatever works to help you know where you're at, go for it, by all means. So for the next row, starting in with a single crochet and chain 1 in that first stitch right there. And because this is the increase side, do a double crochet into that same stitch. Okay. And then into the next stitch, double crochet. And so if you look down here, we have a decrease here. Now the decreases are every other row. The increases are every row. Okay, so let's see, increase, increase, increase. But we have a decrease here, but we have no decrease here. So right here, we need to do another decrease. So going in to start a double, but don't finish it. And then going into the last double, pull through 2, and then pull through all 3. So you can see there is a taper. It is a very gradual taper. It's very, very gradual. And so if you keep in mind also which side your decrease side is on, it's every other row. See, we have a decrease here, then a regular row, then a decrease here. So the next row, it's going to be a regular row. So turning the work, single crochet, chain 1, and so we've got 3 stitches, 1, 2, and 3. So the first 2 are normal, and then the last one is going to be an increase, because that's the increase side. Oops. There you go. So it's very gradual. And so you turn your work, single crochet and chain 1. And because this is the increase side, double crochet into that same stitch. Now we've got 4 double crochets left over. So into the first 2, excuse me, normal double crochets. And then decrease the last 2, because see, I have a decrease here. This is a normal row, so we need a decrease on our current row. So decrease these last 2 doubles. There we go. Through 2, and then through all 3. All right. Oh, excuse me. I hope I'm not coming down with something. Okay, so basically that is the increase, from now until, halfway through your project. Just remember which side is which. Now, I'm going to do a couple more rows for you because I want to make sure that you guys really have it. And then, just imagine that I'm doing the entire project with you. I'm basically setting you up for the halfway mark, and then going to show you what to do the inverse and opposite of what we've been doing so that you can do the decrease. So we shall continue on. All right, so continuing right along, we're going to turn our work and single crochet and chain 1 into that first stitch. And so it's this side is our increase side. So going to stitch my way across with double crochets until I reach that side. And into that last double crochet, I need 2 double crochet stitches. And that would be right here. And also keep a close eye on which is your actual last stitch. You know, again, if you need to use like a safety pin or something, by all means, go for it. I'm not judging. All right, and so this was the increase side. So turn your work into that first stitch, single crochet and chain 1, and because this is the increase side, double crochet into that same stitch for another increase, and then work our way across until the last 2 double crochets. So I've got 3 left, so 1 more, and then decrease the last 2 together. I'm going a little bit faster because basically I'm just repeating myself, but I like to do that because I like to be thorough. So we have a decrease, a regular, and a decrease. So the next one is going to be a regular. So turn the work into the first stitch, single crochet, chain 1, double crochet our way to the other side, and we're going to do 2 doubles into the last stitch, which is right here, this little guy, right there. So going right in there with 2 doubles. There you go. So you can see it's coming along nicely. All right, let's do a couple more. So turn the work, single crochet and chain 1 into that first stitch, and because this is the increase side, double crochet into that same first stitch, double crochet our way across to the other side, but we need to do a decrease at the end because we had a decrease here, and this one's a regular one, so decrease at the end of this row. So when you reach those last 2 double crochet stitches, that's when we need to do the decrease. And I've got 1 more regular, and then these last 2 I decrease. Oops, see, I went too far. See, partially, and then do the next. There we go. And together. Shaboom. Isn't that lovely? All right. So basically, like I said, this is the process that you would follow until you feel that, it's about as long as you want it, so because we're starting from, one tip going our way to the other tip, imagine how long you want your scarf to be. Me, personally, I like my scarves to be approximately 7 feet long, give or take. Now, because these tips are so skinny, and they are great for tying in front around your neck or flopping over your shoulders or what have you, you might want this to be a little bit shorter. It depends on what you're going for as far as style goes. But when you feel confident as far as, yes, I've gone far enough, I don't wish to go any further, then what we're going to do is we're going to basically stop, have a bit of a neutral, and then go into the decrease. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Alrighty. Alrighty, so when you've decided that your piece is halfway as long as you wish for it to be, then we're going to do a neutral row, where we're going to start off by doing our single crochet and chain 1, just as we have been doing, but in every stitch, it's just 1 double crochet per stitch. Okay, very simple. So we're not increasing, we're not decreasing. Now, if you want more of a neutral space, you know, straightaway, you can have that. You can do a number of these rows where there's no increasing nor decreasing. That is totally up to you. Personally, I like to maintain that V shape, so I just do one neutral row, just one. All right, I've got these 2 double crochets because, again, this is my increase side. Keep that in mind. So I've got one right here, and then one last one. All right, so that is my neutral row. Okay, so now we're going to start doing our decreasing. Now, the reverse is, instead of increasing on every row and decreasing on every other row, now we're going to be decreasing on every row and increasing on every other row. I know that sounds a little weird and confusing, but I'm going to go through it with you, not to worry. So we're going to start with our decreasing because this side right here is our increase side. So I'm going to do a little bit of a close-up. Like I mentioned before, see how these 2 stitches sprout out of this one stitch, and so on and so forth. So this is our increase side. So now this side needs to be our decrease side. So every row on this side is going to be a decrease, and every other row on this side is going to be an increase. Okay? Again, if you want to use the safety pin trick or a little scrap of yarn, whatever works for you, that's perfectly fine. Now, because we are starting our row with a decrease, I find in this particular instance, the easiest way to do that is just chain up 2 and do a double crochet, not into this first stitch here, but into the next stitch. And so the top of this stitch right here counts as our decrease. Now, there are other ways of doing this, I'm sure, but this is what I'm going to show you. And so, working our way across to the other side, we will do our increase. All right, so we've got 2 stitches left over, so double crochet into this stitch, and then 2 double crochets into the last stitch. So we started with a decrease, ended with an increase. You know, now based on where you started after you did your neutral row, you may need to do the opposite way. So do what works for you, by all means. But now we're going to be going up in this direction. See, you know, this is how it would look if it were laying flat like on the intro. You know, it goes down and then it swoops back up. So we're going to be swooping up back this way. So for the next row, since this was an increase, we do not start with an increase. We start with a regular. So turn the work, single crochet and chain into that first stitch, and then we're going to work our way across, and at the end we need to do a decrease. So working our way across, now keep in mind that right in here is, right into the top here, that is our last stitch. So it's going to actually look like the last 3 stitches, but it's actually the last 2. Now, I know that sounds a little confusing, but that's why I'm trying to be very, very, very clear if I can. All right, so these last two, just ignore this little guy, that chain 2 that we started with. So with these two, we're going to do a decrease. Like so. And then again, because this is our decrease side, chain up 2, turn the work, skipping over this first stitch, going to the next one with a double crochet for our decrease. See, it looks like, oh my, it's going to increase, sorry, it's going to decrease much faster. But keep in mind that at the end of this upcoming row, we're going to be increasing again. That's what creates the slow taper. So working our way to the end, and then at the last stitch, because on the previous row we didn't do any increases, again, it's the every other row. So at the end of this row, we need an increase. So right into this last stitch, we will do the increase. Ta-da! So I hope this is making some sense. See, we have an increase here, then a regular, an increase here, and then we've been doing decreases all along the other side. So I'm going to keep on going with you until we reach the end, and it won't be that long, believe it or not. So, as you can see, this would be the very, very bottom, and this would be the sort of crevice where our neck would rest. Okay, and now I know this is small scale, but this is to give you a cursory idea as to how it would work. Alrighty, let's keep on going. Alright, so on our last row, we did our increase. So for the next row, it's going to be regular until we reach the end and do our decrease. So to start with, single crochet and chain 1, and then a double crochet into the next, and the next, until we reach the last 2 stitches. And see, that would be, this one counts as 1, and that's the other one. So it looks like 3, but it's actually 2. Remember that. So I need to do 1 more, and then my decrease. And there you go. Moving right along, we need to start with a decrease, so chaining up of 2, turn the work, and skipping this first stitch, going into the next with a double, and that is starting off with our decrease, and then at the end we need our increase. Amen. There we go. All right, so we have our increase there. Next row, turn the work, start off with that single and a chaining of 1, work our way across to the last 2 double crochets so that we can do our decrease. I know it looks like 3, but it's actually 2. So do our decrease. Like so. Boop. All right. Then chaining up of 2, turn the work, skip that first one, going into the next. And that's our decrease. And then double crochet, and then 2 in the last one for our increase. turn the work, single crochet and chain 1, work our way across to the last 2, and it gets shorter and shorter. You know, see, like right now I'm already there after doing the initial and then 1 double. I'm at the decrease already. You know, it goes really fast. So do our decrease. See, almost there. Because I've got a decrease here and 2 regular ones. So start by chaining up of 2, turn the work, and then skipping that first one, going into the next, and doing a double, that is to say 2 doubles in the last. There we go. Turn the work, single crochet and chain 1, and we really can't do anything more, can we? Because this is our chaining of 2, and we just need to do a decrease into these 2 right here. We're almost there. Chain 2, turn the work, and again, skipping that first stitch, going to the last one with a double crochet, and boom, we're done. It's as easy as that. You know, it's just like I said, it's just a 2-row repeat initially, and then a 2-row repeat in the reverse. And if you can keep in mind where you are at as far as which side is which, you can't go wrong. So if you find that the little tricks of using, like I said, a safety pin or a little scrap of yarn works for you, you can do it. You can totally do it. So you can see we have this really lovely tapered edge, and you can make this as long or as short as you want to. And is it an extremely functional piece? I would be inclined to say no, but it's really fun, it's really funky, and it's very different. And if you use, like I said, sort of a slow color change gradient yarn, I think this would be gorgeous. Absolutely, positively. Also, I think that this would be a really fun stash buster. And because you're working really with all double crochets, it would be very easy to work your tails in as you're doing your stitches. So, with that being said, I really hope that you like this tutorial, because you know I love teaching you guys. It's so much fun. And if you did like it, please give me a little thumbs up button down below, because I appreciate your appreciation. Always. And also, please hit subscribe, because I do try to post videos as often as I can, whether it's crocheting or knitting, audiobook narration, or on my other YouTube channel, Fiber Spider Games. I do video game playthrough and commentary. It's a lot of fun, and I'd like to see you there too. A lot of fun. Join the crowd. And so until next time, I want all of you to stay inspired, stay caffeinated, and above all, stay stitching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.